42 seconds. That's reportedly the average length of a full toddler tantrum, according to researchers who apparently had the patience to time them. 42 seconds. It feels like 42 minutes.
And yet those 42 seconds can leave a grown adult, someone who manages spreadsheets, drives a car, navigates actual crises, standing in a supermarket aisle completely unable to function.
I remember the one that happened in a Target. My son, 3 years old, lost it because I broke his cereal bar in half to give him half. He wanted it whole. He didn't want to eat it whole, he just wanted it whole.
The whole thing must exist, even though the whole thing is the problem.
That's not irrational, by the way. There is developmental logic to that, which is kind of what we're here to talk about.
Okay, hi, I'm Maya Brooks, 2 kids, ages 4 and almost 6. I am very much in the weeds right now.
Oliver Hart. I spent an embarrassing number of hours reading developmental neuroscience papers so you don't have to, or so you don't have to read them wrong.
And I'm Theo Sanders. My kids are teenagers now, which means I can see the battlefield from a safe distance and tell you that it does, in fact, end.
This is Raising Humans. We're launching today, June 21st, 2026, and the plan is simple. Every week we take one thing that's genuinely hard about raising small people, we find out what the science actually says, and we try to land on something you can use, not a philosophy, a thing.
Something you can actually do at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday when everything has gone sideways.
And we start today with the tantrum. Because if you have a toddler, the tantrum is the thing. It is the central weather event of early childhood.
So let's get into what is actually happening. Because I feel like, and tell me if this is wrong, I feel like I sort of understood it theoretically, and then I had kids and realized I understood nothing.
You understood the map, but not the terrain.
Exactly.
So here's the actual biology. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles impulse control, emotional regulation, reasoning, all the good stuff, is genuinely not developed in a toddler. Not underdeveloped, not a bit immature, structurally incomplete. The connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, which is your emotional alarm system, are not fully formed until your mid-20s.
Mid-20s. I think about that every time I look at my teenager, honestly.
But a 2 or 3-year-old is operating almost entirely out of the amygdala. When something triggers distress, the cereal bar was broken, the cup is the wrong color, you said the word laters, the alarm fires, and there is essentially no governor on it. The brake doesn't exist yet.
So when my daughter is screaming on the floor, she's not choosing not to calm down.
She literally cannot choose. That's the critical bit. She is in a full physiological stress response. Heart rate up, cortisol spiking, the body doing exactly what it's designed to do when it believes something is very wrong.
And I'm standing there saying, use your words.
Which is asking the part of the brain that produces words to override the part of the brain that is currently on fire. Not going to happen.
I had a pediatrician who told me. This was maybe 15 years ago. She said, in that moment, your child is not giving you a hard time. They are having a hard time. And I know that sounds like a bumper sticker, but when I actually internalized it, something shifted for me.
See, I've heard that, and I believe it, and it still doesn't help me at the moment when it's happening.
No, it doesn't. That's separate.
There was a study, and this is one I find genuinely interesting, published around 2011 by researchers at the University of Minnesota, led by a scientist named Michael Potegal. He and James Garber actually tried to map the acoustic profile of tantrums. They recorded toddler meltdowns and analyzed the sounds. What they found is that the angry sounds and the sad sounds overlap. They happen simultaneously, but the screaming tends to peak early, and if you can get past the peak, the crying and sadness emerge on their own, and that's actually when comfort becomes possible.
So the worst-looking part comes first.
Which means if you try to intervene at the peak with reasoning or negotiation, you are fighting the biology at exactly the wrong moment.
This is the thing no one told me. Because everything I read said stay calm, validate feelings, get down to their level, and I do all of that, and it makes zero difference when she's at peak.
Because validation requires the child to receive language, process it, and feel heard. None of that is available at peak amygdala. You're talking to a locked room.
The analogy I always use with people is, Imagine you're terrified, like genuinely frightened. Someone says to you calmly, "I can see you're scared right now." That must be really hard. Would that stop the fear response in your body?
No, maybe later. Not right now.
Right. Later is actually when it works. Later is when connection and validation do their job, not during.
And this is where I want to push back on something, because there's a myth that has really taken hold in parenting culture over the last decade or so, and I think it's doing genuine harm.
The calm parent myth.
This idea that if you do everything right, if you're regulated enough, if you've read the right books, if you've done enough inner work on your own childhood, you can prevent your toddler from having tantrums, or that tantrums are a symptom of something going wrong at home.
I cannot tell you how much guilt I have carried about this.
And it is not supported by the data. Tantrums are developmentally normative. The American Academy of Pediatrics describes them as a normal part of development between roughly 18 months and 4 years. The peak frequency is around 2 to 3 years. Virtually every typically developing child has them.
Which doesn't mean all tantrums are the same, right? There's a range.
Absolutely. There are signs that something else may be going on. Tantrums that are extremely frequent past age 4, that involve self-harm, that last unusually long regularly. Those warrant a conversation with a pediatrician. But the standard meltdown in the cereal aisle? That is your child's brain doing exactly what a brain that age does.
So when the woman gives me the look that says, "I raised 3 children and none of them ever behaved like that,"
she is either misremembering or her children had atypically low emotional range, which is actually not necessarily a good thing.
I genuinely believe that a child who never melts down is either very emotionally suppressed or you've just forgotten.
I will hold on to both of those.
Can we talk for a minute about why public tantrums are specifically terrible? Because there's something neurologically interesting happening to the parent there too.
Please, because I become a completely different person in public.
So your own stress response is activated. You're experiencing social threat, judgment from other people, perceived failure as a parent, and your own cortisol goes up. Your own prefrontal cortex starts to go offline under acute stress, which means the person who most needs to be regulated is also getting dysregulated.
2 amygdalas, no prefrontal cortex.
That's essentially it. And then people give advice like, just stay calm, which is useful advice in the same way, just don't be stressed is useful advice.
I think the thing that helped me in public was something my wife said. She said, "Everyone in that store has been a toddler. Most of them have parented one or know someone who has. You are not as alone as you feel right now."
That actually does help.
It helped me get out of my head long enough to come back to my kid.
There's something to that. The perceived judgment is often worse than the actual judgment. Studies on social pain show we systematically overestimate how much strangers are evaluating us negatively.
The spotlight effect.
Exactly. Thomas Gilovich's work at Cornell, going back to around 1999 or so, we think we're under a spotlight. We're mostly not.
And even when we are, so what? The tantrum will end. You'll never see those people again.
My rational brain knows this. My rational brain is also not available in the cereal aisle.
You're living proof of the model.
Okay, I want to get practical, because that is my job here. So we've established. Tantrums are real, they're neurological, reasoning doesn't work at peak, and you can't prevent them by being a sufficiently enlightened parent. What can you actually do?
So I want to be honest about the evidence here, because there's a lot of advice floating around that is ahead of the research. A lot of what works is still somewhat anecdotal and clinician-observed rather than large randomized controlled trials. The field is genuinely building.
Noted. What's the best we've got?
The consistent finding across the research that does exist, including work from people like Ross Green, who developed what he calls the collaborative problem-solving model, and earlier developmental work from T. Berry Brazelton, is that the least effective thing you can do during peak distress is talk, negotiate, or threaten consequences. It escalates rather than de-escalates.
Everything we instinctively want to do.
Almost everything we instinctively want to do, yes. The most supported approaches involve first ensuring safety. You're not going to let a child hurt themselves. And then waiting. Presence without pressure. You are there. You are calm-ish. You are not demanding anything from them.
Calm-ish. I appreciate the ish.
I am not going to tell you to achieve perfect calm. Perfect calm is not a realistic target. Calmish. Good enough.
When mine were that age, I would physically get down on the floor near them, not grabbing, not talking, just, I'm here. The floor is where we are right now. I'm not leaving, and I'm also not fighting you.
I've done that, and it helped, actually. When I could make myself do it.
It also communicates something, right? It says, this is not an emergency to me. Which, and tell me if this is too fluffy, I think that does transmit somehow.
It's not too fluffy. There's work on co-regulation. The idea that a regulated adult nervous system can help modulate a dysregulated child's nervous system, that has real grounding in polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges's work, and in attachment research. It's not magic, but the mechanism is plausible and the clinical observations support it.
So you actually do transmit your calm.
You can. Not instantaneously and not perfectly, but your physical presence and lack of escalation creates conditions where the peak can pass faster.
And the thing that no one says enough, after. After is the whole game. Once they're through it, once the screaming is gone and you've got the sad, tired little person who just burned through all their resources, that's when you connect. That's when you say, hey, that was really hard. I love you. No lecture, no debrief, just reconnection.
I have to be honest, the after is hard for me too, because my cortisol is still doing whatever cortisol does.
Yeah, you get to breathe for 30 seconds first.
The debrief, if there is one, is for much later. And brief. Toddler's narrative memory is limited. A long morality lecture after a tantrum is essentially for the parent, not the child.
That's a little too accurate. So we said we'd land on one thing to try the next time it happens in public. Can we land on that?
Let's land.
The floor thing. Genuinely. Get down. Don't talk. Don't grab unless they're unsafe. Just get to their level, keep your face neutral and open, and wait.
It feels like doing nothing.
It is not nothing. You are holding the container. You are being the regulated nervous system in the room. You are telling your child with your body, this will pass, and I will be here when it does.
And if you can't achieve that, if you're too activated yourself, which is completely understandable, the minimum version is don't escalate. Don't match their volume. Don't threaten something you won't follow through on. Don't negotiate in the peak. Just get quieter and slower, even if you can only manage slightly quieter and slightly slower.
I can do that.
The thing I'd add, and this is the long view thing, is that you will do this imperfectly many times, and that is okay. The relationship is built across hundreds of moments, not any one of them. Rupture and repair is actually how attachment works. You lose it, you come back, you repair. That teaches something too.
And I think there's something important in naming that the goal is not a tantrum-free childhood. The goal is a child who, over years, builds the neural architecture for emotional regulation. The tantrum is actually part of how that happens. The brain learns to recover from dysregulation by doing it repeatedly with a safe person nearby.
So the tantrum is practice.
In a very real sense, yes. Painful, public, 42-second practice.
42 seconds of brain development.
I'm going to say that the next time I'm in the cereal aisle, this is 42 seconds of brain development.
You will not remember that in the cereal aisle.
I will absolutely not remember that in the cereal aisle.
For our first episode, I think that's a real place to land. We started with a number, 42 seconds, and I think the thing to carry out is that those 42 seconds are not a failure. They're not an indictment. They are, as best we understand it, a nervous system doing what a nervous system that age does, in a world that is often overwhelming.
And your job is not to make it stop. Your job is to be there when it does.
That's a better summary than anything I said.
I have my moments.
This is Raising Humans. We're weekly, we're starting today, and next week we are going to get into sleep. Because nobody is sleeping, and the advice is, if anything, even more contradictory than the tantrum advice.
The sleep data is a mess. I am looking forward to it.
I am desperate for it. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts. We'll be back next week.
Take care of yourselves out there. This episode was generated with AI by Demades.